To discuss how universal basic income, marijuana, and cryptocurrency will shape the economic debate in the coming US elections, we are joined by Greg Thomas from 375 Park Associates. Greg, thank you so much for speaking with us. Let's start. The US presidential election is still 18 months away, but there's plenty of people vying for the job. What are some of the issues, do you think, that will get voters to the polls in 2020?
Hello, Jack. It's good to talk to you again. You are correct. It does seem as if everyone who is eligible to run for president is. To make matters worse, we are 18 months from the election, and it seems as if our collective nightmare of never-ending campaigns is set to continue, at least for now. In terms of the issues, healthcare and the economy are the two which will continue to vex voters. In fact, it is probably more a matter of anxiety over rising costs and sluggish wage growth, even as top-line indicators point towards robust economic growth. But these aren't the only issues. Another one, which will garner much of the headlines, but is probably more diversion than substance, is the debate over which of the plethora of candidates is most unlike Trump, the anti-Trump, so you will. However, all three of these issues have been baked into the cake at this point, and the reality is that there is little room for surprise. This leads us to look at the issues which might have a tremendous impact on not only the outcome of the election, but also the economy. In fact, there are three issues which we believe have the potential to galvanize the electorate while transforming the economy. They are universal basic income, marijuana, and the future of cryptocurrency.
So do you think voters want to see cryptocurrency as an alternative to the greenback?
Well, let's face it. There are some voters who want to do away with central banks and fiat currencies and go full crypto. Oddly, many of the same voters also support the gold standard, which is perplexing given their hopes for crypto. This is a small yet vocal minority of voters. And I think most voters do not really see how cryptocurrencies can impact their lives. And this is the very reason why we believe it could be a transformative issue in the coming election. Hear me out. Not only could cryptocurrencies be used to reduce transaction costs, but they hold the promise of allowing tokenization of commodities, which many of us take for granted. Take, for example, avocados on your avocado toast. What if there was an opportunity to invest in the grower via crypto and then to reduce the cost of this food item? The case is not as extreme as it seems. As similar crypto-based solutions could be applied to energy, to healthcare, helping to reduce transaction costs, and putting the consumer in control of who they deal with. Now, back to your question, will cryptocurrencies become an alternative to greenback? Quite possibly, yes, as it might be in the best interest of global trade organizations to adopt a stablecoin means to hasten cross-border settlement. The adoption of such a coin might also act as further democratization of trade and could be a proxy for free trade agreements in the future. Granted, tourists might think that I'm conflating the concepts of blockchain and cryptocurrency, but I think a better way to look at it is how can we use these technologies to improve the lives of everyone.
You mentioned marijuana before. Well, many more states will put forward ballot initiatives in 2020. How will issues surrounding this affect the federal elections?
Well, it's time for the federal government to get serious about legalization. This includes a slew of initiatives from decriminalization to expunging of criminal records tied to possession, for example, licensing, product approval, and even best practices for development. Beyond this, we can look at banking reform tied to the industry, and lastly, a commitment to declassify marijuana as a narcotic substance. Our feeling is that marijuana will be a wedge issue, or maybe the wedge issue in the 2020 campaign. And candidates who fully embrace legalization will hold a tremendous advantage. In fact, now that former Attorney General Jeff Sessions is out of the way, there's a very real possibility that Mr. Trump will embrace this issue as his own through his support, though his support will probably be an attempt to shore up his wagon full of numbers.
With a massive deficit in the US and plenty of issues surrounding social programs, what is UBI and how is it different? And do you expect it to garner much mainstream attention heading into the elections?
No doubt about it. The debt and the deficit are issues that will need to be addressed in the US sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, most candidates don't have an answer. One approach which holds the promise of simultaneously expanding the social safety net while bringing fiscal responsibility back to government is universal basic income, or UBI. The most vocal proponent of this approach is Andrew Yang, and we think his proposal not only has merit, but should be part of the debate. In particular, a UBI in the US would help to level the playing field while putting the choice of what to do with the funds in the hands of the recipient and not the government. This is all well and good, but the next step would be a gradual drawdown of more narrowly defined social programs, as many would become redundant under UBI. Note, this does not mean that all social programs would be merged under UBI. Rather, it would allow for the government to become more agile by deploying resources for targeted programs when certain conditions are met. At the same time, UBI holds the opportunity to greatly reduce government headcount, not only at the federal level, but also at the state and local level. While this would create some disruption in the job market, many highly skilled civil servants would be quickly hired by private sector companies who are currently starving for talent. Looking at UBI, we are long overdue, and not just in the US, but in other places as well. President Nixon almost pulled the trigger on the program back in the early 70s. And if you look at rising income inequality in developed countries and the shrinking middle class around the world, I believe it is the only way to help protect millions against coming economic disruption, while simultaneously giving them an opportunity to start businesses or give back to their community without having to worry about covering the bills.
So as we said at the beginning, we still have 18 months left until the elections, though press coverage is already picking up significantly. How can investors cut through the noise and achieve alpha in the meantime?
Well, you saved the best for last. For investors, I think they need to look at 4 different things. Number one, which opportunities would benefit from the proposals put forward by the candidate? So looking at what investments you're looking at, and then seeing how candidates' specific proposals, what would they do to that in terms of the market going forward? Number 2, how likely are these proposals to become law and withstand court challenges? And this shouldn't be underscored. For example, we are big proponents of UBI, but the reality of it becoming the law of the land after the 2020 election is unfortunately slim. Meanwhile, in marijuana, I think full legalization after 2020 is a possibility, and not it by 2030. I mean, in the next, whoever is the next president or the next presidential term. That brings us to the timeline. Remember that the election is still 18 months away, and then it might be another year or 2 after that for the proposal to actually become a law. And I think as an investor, you've got to look at that in your calculus and decide whether this opportunity, which is contingent on a proposal or a change in law, is really going to happen. And lastly, what are the opportunity costs? Gauging how to make money on the outcome of an election means that one must be able to size up the cost benefit. If not, they risk getting things horribly wrong.
Well, a big thank you to Greg, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview and would like to find out more, be sure to head over to dukascopy.tv.